It's a great pleasure to speak to the People's Assembly organised by Green Cross Australia, and I'm sorry I'm not able to join you in person. There's been much discussion in Australia in recent months about both the challenges and opportunities involved in addressing climate change. Australia has a great deal to lose from climate change. Climate change threatens our food production, our agriculture and water supplies, as well as icons like the Great Barrier Reef, the Kakadu wetlands and the multi-billion-dollar tourism industries they support. One clear message from Professor Garneau's draft report was that failure is not an option for Australia. I have defined the response to climate change as a responsibility agenda. The Australian people voted for action on climate change, for taking responsibility for the planet, for the future, for our economic prosperity today and tomorrow. It is a challenge we need to tackle together, so I am particularly pleased at the way the People's Assembly initiative is highlighting the role of everyday Australians in taking action on climate change. Thank you for stepping up to take on this challenge. I'd like to touch on some of the key issues you're grappling with through your Assembly and outline what the Rudd government is doing to address them. We expect sea level rise to have a serious impact on populations both in Australia and in the Pacific region in coming years. In Australia, many of our settlements and much of our infrastructure lie close to the coast and confront particular challenges regarding sea level rise, storm surge and coastal erosion. Sea level rise will cause erosion of coasts and increased flooding, and more intense storm surges will exacerbate these problems. A high proportion of Australia's infrastructure, such as ports, airports, roads, rail and bridges, and residential housing lie in the coastal zone and will be exposed to sea level rise and storm surges. Over 700,000 coastal addresses worth tens of billions of dollars are at risk of significant damage from extreme weather events. And of course, no one is more at risk from sea level rise than our low-lying Pacific Island neighbours. These nations are located in areas prone to natural disasters, have poorly developed infrastructure and relatively large populations for their geographic size. Many islands have subsistence economies and are highly dependent on marine resources. They also have limited natural human and economic capacity to adapt to external shocks. More than an estimated 50% of the population live within 1,500 metres of the shoreline. So increased inundation, storm surge and erosion will impact heavily on small island infrastructure. Availability of fresh water will be put under severe pressure from saltwater inundation and changes in rainfall. World Bank assessments note that the most expensive disasters have mainly been in small island states. Annual damage averages 2 to 7% of GDP of Pacific Island economies in both disaster and non-disaster years. The economic impact of a single disaster can amount to as much as 138% of a nation's annual GDP, as was the case with Cyclone Val in Samoa in 1991. Taking these issues into account, the government is serious about taking action to address the threat of sea level rise and other climate change impacts on communities in Australia, and we will also do what we can in the Pacific region to assist our neighbours in building their resilience and helping them to take their message to the international community in key forums such as the UNFCCC.